Welcome to selfdiscoveryradio.com, where the orchard of wisdom is just ready for picking. We celebrate your why, the journey that you've taken that inspires someone else. We support your services, we support your story. Come and be our guest, become a host, be an author with us. Come and see what we've got. Our next show is... Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Your Health is Up to You, which really it is. When we find ourselves in sickness, it is up to us and how we actually find our wellness, because the answers are always out there. I'm your host, Sara Troy, and it looks like today we might have a little delay on my side, so please don't mind that. The words are here, even if the mouth isn't matching. And my guest today is Peter J. Churchill, known as PJ. And he is a person who has suffered through epilepsy through his life. And, you know, he's very, very creative because he's talking about broaden his horizons, even with living with epilepsy. And he's also an author of many books, which we're going to be talking about today. But we're going to start off with epilepsy, how it turned his life upside down, and, you know, how it affected his opportunities, his adulthood, and everything else that were his obstacles, but what he chose to look upon as make something positive out of it. And clearly he has, because as I said, he's an author of many, many books, and he's out there very, very productive in life. So he obviously got the better of the epilepsy instead of letting epilepsy get the better of him. So welcome to the show, PJ.
Hi, thank you for accepting me, Sara.
That's great. And epilepsy today seems to be more manageable, but this is really only something that recently has kind of got to a point where they can do something about it. But in my era growing up, when a kid had an epileptic fit, it was really dangerous because they literally could die from it, couldn't they?
Yes, and as from when they first arrived with me at 18 months old, the technology, there was just no MRI scans and other things we just didn't have at the time.
Yeah.
And so being 18 months old and just taking medication, the struggle started from there.
Yeah. And of course, when you did have a fit, people really didn't quite understand what was going on. People didn't know what to do. And there's certain steps that you had to take in order to make sure that the, person didn't swallow their tongue or things that were worse. Obviously your parents got apt with that, but, it's when you're at school or when you're out with friends. At 18 months old, if you have it, it's just something you've always had, so you don't know any different.
No,
But, you just learn to live with it. But, that's all you remember, isn't it? You don't remember anything before that.
No, not really. I can't remember during my first 18 months of being a healthy baby. I can't remember what happened in the first 18 months. And everything just snowballed from the time that the seizures started to occur.
Mm-hmm. And how long did it take for them to actually understand what it was?
Quite a bit, because it was through having blood convulsions where blood shot to the brain, and they would just run with me to the hospital. And when they got to their local hospital, there was no positions in the hospital to take me in, so we had to race to another town to see if there was another one there, and that was a good half-hour drive, which probably might have caused the seizures to get as bad as they actually did eventually, because the time scale.
Yeah, because you have to address it right there and then, isn't it? It is an immediate thing. It's not like, oh, wait for this to pass. It is an immediate reaction to it. Through your years, you've obviously seen so many different techniques. Would you like to share with us some of the techniques that they've used that maybe are outdated now? And, ultimately, what actually has helped you live a productive life?
In the sorry, my tongue was in here.
It's one of those days.
Yeah, where, being a child, they would put wires on your head and put grease on it to keep the wires tied on, and would take results that way. But really, nothing was getting found as as the results of those, because the technology then in my childhood days just wasn't around.
Right.
And they just carried on through the years up to a point when, in my late teens to 20s, when they finally, the technology was building up, and the technology could find what couldn't be found when I was a toddler.
Right.
A
Yeah,
young
and that's
child.
the thing. We do have to wait for technology, right? Because, you know, there's so many apparatuses out there today, breakthroughs that, you know, that are absolutely miraculous, that are saving lives. And, you know, it didn't matter how smart we were, you know, until the tools were there. You know, it's the carpenter is only as good as the tools, right? And until the tools were there, you really couldn't see the masterpieces coming out. And once the tools were there, then it exponentially they could find. So what was it in particular, you know, what technology that started them being able to give you something for the epilepsy?
Along with the medication, which I started to take in my being 3 or 4 years old, which is Tegretol, which I've taken virtually all through my life. As in the technology side, it wasn't till the January of 1996 when I had an invitation to be one of the first to use a certain MRI scanning machine in the UK, and it was that scan that they found what was finally triggering off the seizures.
Which is?
Where they found they could find a scarring on the left-hand side of the brain, which had all been sitting there all through the years, but they just could find it with the wires on the head in them earlier years.
Right. They needed a machine that actually could show it. So was that blocking messaging coming to your brain or blood flow or something?
It was actually just scarring that was triggering off seizures, because most of the time I did have warnings in the taste in the mouth before I went down into a full-blown seizure, and that's what was causing the seizure. So after having that scan, I actually went to central London in the UK to have some tests done to see if we could go ahead of going for an operation in the same year of 1996.
And did they?
Yes, the tests were to find out which side of the brain my seizures were triggering from, and they was on the left-hand side, which meant that I could actually being the chance, if I wanted to take it, to have that operation. And it was, anyway, up to that point, I'd taken all the medications that I could take, and it was a last chance saloon, so it was go for it or bust.
Right. No, but you said left-hand side. Does that mean the right-hand side is more tricky?
Yeah, I think probably for some reason, I'm not quite sure the exact reason, but the seizures have to trigger from one certain side for you to be able to, when they have tests, when other patients have tests, to know if the surgeon or the doctor can let them go ahead have an operation.
Okay, so if it was on the right-hand side, they wouldn't be able to do it?
I think, yeah, possibly for some reason, no.
It must be maybe something too close to a certain part of the brain.
Yes, possibly.
Right. So, yeah, so if you're a left-hand epileptic, then there's hope for you, right? Yeah. And the operation obviously worked?
Yes, it did actually, from when I had that in November 1996, because before the operation, I was having between 50 and 65 major seizures a year. And from the minute the operation took place, I've not had a major seizure since 1996 up to today.
Right. And, you know, that obviously, you know, gave you a life that you've never known before.
Certainly, in the way of doing a lot of things that I couldn't do before the operation or didn't have confidence in doing.
Right.
Confidence is the major factor in this one, of what the confidence wouldn't let you do, like do things in public, as in just going down to your local pub and singing at a karaoke, or you know, just anything like that. You just didn't have the guts to.
Right. But was that in fear that you might have an you know, a fit during it?
Possibly, yes, because I had a fear of travelling either. I didn't want to travel on train on my own. I was always scared
Mm-hmm.
I might have a seizure being on my own.
Because obviously when you're in a seizure, you can't help yourself. You need other people to help you.
Yes, and that's very true. And having people about, particularly, you hope that someone's there that knows what's going on, but when they're not, you could be in with a problem.
Right.
You've got to hope that you don't do anything like swallow your tongue or anything like that.
Right, exactly. And, know what medication to give you, or know, what to do. And of course, when somebody is on the floor gyrating like that,
Yes.
For other people, they've never seen it before. They have absolutely no idea. And of course, today, we have people who, get into a drug induced reaction.
Yes.
It could look very much the same as epilepsy too, can't it?
Yes, it can do. I agree with you there, Sarah.
So, for some people, especially today, it would probably be automatic, oh, it must be drugs.
Yeah, because I'm still taking, I've just actually, this week alone, I've just managed to come off finishing one of the drugs that I used to be on, and we lowered the dosage, and now I've just this week come off it, and now I've just got one more to do. Whenever we start doing the process of getting that lower and coming off it.
Right. And you said you haven't had a seizure since 96, but you've had little ones?
Little taste in the mouth.
Right, but no actual seizure.
No actual seizure that people could see in front of me.
Wow.
No one would ever know that I've had one.
Right. Now, does epilepsy leave any long-lasting damage or obstacles or challenges because of all the seizures that you had?
I think in the long term, that's down to injuries, as in, let's say, if you're at the top of the stairs and you have a seizure and you don't get a warning, you just collapse and fall down, and that kind of thing. Same as a normal accident of banging your head or banging your back or whatever. But when you've had a few of those,
yes,
in the long term, it's wear and tear.
Yes, it's like, picking you up as a rag doll and just throwing you around, isn't it? Yeah. And of course, you have no control. There's nothing you can do.
No.
I'm having a fit. I can land here comfortably on my bed, because you don't have that choice, do you? No. Yeah. And, epilepsy, I know that I grew up with kids around me that had it, but it was still something that people didn't seem to understand. But we don't hear too much about it today. I think it's rarer. Do you think it's because of the strides that they've made in operations and technology?
Yes, and as in technology, there's sites are all over the place on the internet, as in on Facebook, for example, where you can find epilepsy sites where people are communicating with each other and talking to each other that way.
Right.
In the UK, America, and other countries.
Right. So kind of they're sharing the information of what they've done. And I imagine in 22 years, is it 22 years? Yeah. The technology advancements now.
Yes.
And if you were successful in 96, imagine what the success rate is now.
Probably much better.
Yeah, exactly, because all that, and probably less abrasive with the actual operation because of all the technology today, which, this is where technology is at its best, isn't it?
Yes, it certainly is in some parts.
Yeah. I mean, we're on technology right now, which allows us to share these stories around the world. And so it's always looking at the good side of things like that. So this hasn't stopped you. Up to 96, could you hold down a job? Could you do, everyday things? Or were you constantly kind of living in fear of a fit?
I did have a job as just working as a porter at a hospital, just pushing trolleys around, picking up laundry and that kind of thing. But I was obviously in a position where I could never go and apply for a job that involved machinery.
Right.
Because working with machinery would be too dangerous a job for an person to do.
And of course, working in the hospital, if you have a fit, you're in the right place.
Yes, very true.
With people who understood. So post-op, you have a new life in front of you now.
Yes.
First, you've got to get around the belief that you don't have them anymore. Like, I'm sure you keep waiting for one.
Oh, yeah. There's obviously that possibility. But you obviously take one day at a time and just hope that the life continues the way it's improved from the day you had the operation. And I say, fortunately, it's been 22 years, as you say, since a major one.
Right. And so, now you've got a clean slate in front of you. And,
Yeah.
and now you've become an author, but, what were your steps? First the realization, hey, I don't have these fits anymore. I can trust
Mm.
that. You've got to go through that process. And then it's like a complete new discovery of your opportunities in life. So what was that like for you?
It was great, as in I'd never before the operation, I'd never travelled. But after the operation, I started going abroad by plane
Excuse
to
me.
start going on foreign holidays abroad. And it was so great. So the very first time I got on the plane to go and take off from the UK to go to Spain. And, you obviously, when you went as it was going to a country that also got hot, you also you had that little bit of
Anxiety.
anxiety that getting too hot, a seizure might kick off.
Right.
But fortunately, it didn't occur because obviously the scarring they removed did the job.
Right. Right. Which is miraculous.
Mm.
And, obviously travel, exploring that, but, now you have opportunities of a totally new career.
Yes, of writing, and which I do, and along with my wife Telsey, and we both do this, and I've been writing even this week alone.
So when did that start?
It actually started a few years ago when I started doing little bits of writing at school. When I was a teacher, a member of the football team, and I always I'm mad on soccer, and whenever I played, I'd go into my next English class, and the teacher would let me write a little report on how the game went and what happened, and if I scored a goal or not, I'd put that down and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was just the early stages of writing things into a book, which
Right.
became,
It's how many people who are, just simply start blogging,
yeah,
discover there are authors, and then goes into books. So yes, you don't know where it's going to start, right? But it's all a form of storytelling.
yes, it certainly is. As in the book that we're talking about, my
Right.
book with epilepsy. It's a book that leads up right up to this virtually almost this very day of arriving here in Canada.
Right. Right. And I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, I think it's rather if somebody has lost a limb and suddenly, they're given a limb again, and they've got to get used to how to use it, but then also they're so used to living without it. It's now I've got this extension of me I can use that can improve my life, and for you to go through obviously they're waiting to see if you're going to have any seizures after the operation, because they won't know it's a success, depending on the time passed. So you have to go through that time to go, is there one coming? Can I trust it? Can I get out there? And then just exploring life again as, travel, writing. Were you able to take a different kind of job that, that you felt that you could spread your wings more on?
Well, after the operation, I took a chance in going into manufacturing, working on machinery that did razors for a company, and they packed razors. But there was that time, what I didn't think about at the time, the fact that during my younger days, all the crash, bang, wallets that my body took
Right.
through the epilepsy in them early years, the wear and tear, while I was working with this manufacturing company, packing it and twisting my body side by side to keep up with the speed of the machines, caused wear and tear, and I lasted 7 years, then I had to really come away from that.
Yeah, because as you pointed out, you don't have the epilepsy anymore, but you have got, obviously, the scars from the epilepsy fits, because I think people don't realize when you're in that epileptic fit how your body contorts, and wherever you are, you're going to fall down, and you're in such a tight ricochet, like everything in your body completely contracts, and that in itself is traumatizing for the body. And as you said, you were having up to 65 a year. For how many years? How many years was that?
That would have been up to from 18 months old to my mid-20s.
Right. So that's a hell of a long time. And so,
Yes, and
yes, your body is going to take a beating on that. So you get rid of one thing, and then you discover that your body now
mm,
is challenged, because
yeah,
of the past. So is this then where the writing kind of full time stepped in?
yeah, it came in as in stepped in to start writing these books and helping other people and writing these poetry books as well.
Right, right. And of course, now you're a prevalent writer. You do a lot of poetry.
Yes,
And so, let's go through your books here. I'm just going to go into your page. So you obviously the Broadening Your Horizons is the story of your epilepsy and in the freedom from when
yeah,
you did break free of that, which if anybody who knows anybody with epilepsy or has it, it's a really good read to actually understand.
mm,
It's not just the fit. It's the ricochet of everything that happens around it, and the fact that there is an operation that you did 22 years ago, which must be perfected now, that done early enough will stop all the other obstacles or challenges that will come later. But
yeah,
you've got these books here, and you've got a book of lovers' poems and poetry in motion, family, friends, and lovers, and spiritual guiding from those above us. So let's have a look at these books. I don't know which one came first. Which one came first for you?
Poetry Motion came first, actually.
Right, right. So let's have a look at that one. Tell us a little bit about it.
That's actually a book, my first book I wrote, my first batch of poems that I wrote, and they're all. It's a book about subjects of different things, as in everyday life, uh, animals, gardens, fitness and health, a real bland. It's a book of everyday life, really. Poetry emotion, as in which some of them are relating to my own life.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I would assume somebody who's gone through what you've gone through, the simplicity of being in motion is poetry itself.
Very true. That is very true, Sarah.
Mm-hmm. It's only when your body is challenged or your mind or anything is challenged that you feel and see things differently, don't you?
Yes, indeed.
So, poetry in motion, we as a human race can be poetry in motion if we decide to be participants in our own emotion, right? Emotion for motion. And that our motion is a direct reflect of our emotion, isn't it?
Yes, very true. Of our own emotions of different things.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, it's with the epilepsy. For others, it could be other strenuous situations.
Right, exactly. And life is a challenge. For every one of us, there's something put in front of us, and it's like, how are we going to work our way through this? Rise above, find our strength, find our courage. How much do we want to live and be a part of life? And that's what life is about. So we're all given something, but it's how we choose to go through it,
Mm,
and the belief of coming through the other side, and what we do with that knowledge of coming through it too. So
very,
you've poured all that knowledge into your poetry, into your books.
yes, and indeed, it's just when you just like to write and write and write and just keep the mind memory going, and it's just having a good imagination as well.
Right. And we need that. I think people have, we've got so much around us. I think we're inundated. This is where we've got the technology overload.
Mm,
And, you go to movies today that CGI everything, and everything is just so blasting at you. And it doesn't leave the wonderment or allow your own imagination to fill in the gaps.
mm,
Everything is there for you. And I think it's doing us a disservice, because we need our imagination activated in order to be creative creatures in our own lives.
yes, very much and true. Again, I agree with you there, Sarah.
So what book came next?
That was, I think, Garden of Life, actually.
Hmm.
Again,
The
Garden,
one we don't actually have up here on your posting, but they can find it on your website.
yeah, that's the book, Garden of Life. Again, a mixture of different poems of involved the stream, time ticks by, because that's, is it okay to read one?
Yes, yes,
As in,
yes.
one I wrote called Time Ticks By. time can be like a ticking bomb at times. Does not stop for anyone's rhythm and rhymes. Seconds tick continuously, whether at work or at play. It seems to rush by when we are enjoying whatever we are doing. Then goes slow when we are not having fun. From minutes to hours, then to days. Weeks on to months, time just ticks away. 1 minute Easter is here, then the summer, then summer through to Christmas. It's never taking long for a year to fly by.
No. And, you know, that's, I think as you get older, that's something you actually understand, that time goes by very quickly. And it's what you do with the time. Everybody gets given the same time, don't they? Everybody. I don't care who you are or where you're from. We're all on the same time schedule. And it's what we choose to do with that time and how we acknowledge the seasons of our lives. You know, and, you know, we all have favorite particular parts of the year for different reasons. But it's, again, going back to being participants of the time in our lives to make sure we're not wasting time or avoiding time. You know, how many people live in, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Oh, I'm looking forward to that. But what about the gift of the present?
Exactly, in the sense of when people are looking forward to their going to go on holiday, even though it's a month away, you've got things to do in between the two.
Yes. And you can make the preparation in going fun. That's fine. But it's like, don't forget the moment, the present, the gift of the now. This is where you're at right now. So don't constantly be living for the tomorrows, because then the tomorrow's a disappointment because you haven't, you know, seeded and watered the now for tomorrow to grow into its fruitfulness.
Because as we get older, time goes faster.
Yeah, it does. Hang on, I wanted to slow down, please. Because yes, it does go faster, and all of a sudden you look back and you say, yeah, another year has gone. And, you know, the question then comes, I think we need to ask ourselves, what did we achieve in that year?
Yeah, exactly.
What did we do in that year that was, you know, a meaningful purpose that really propelled us forward in life, you know, that we could look back on and be proud of? What did we achieve? Even if it was struggles. You know, have I overcome those struggles? Have I, you know, got to, you know, the fact that I am still here despite the struggles, right? So celebration is another thing we need to remember, isn't it?
It's like in this current situation, the way the struggles those that are suffering in California. Yes,
exactly. And you know, nature can be the cruelest of all. I mean, it came in like you know, a fire volcanic ball, just obliterating. And there was a picture I saw on Facebook this morning of an entire area and the scattered houses still standing and others just ashes, not even fractions of building, just ashes.
Very
and
true.
It's, you know, how can this house stand and that one go? And, you know, the amount of life lost, especially that of animals, because people didn't seem to have the warning. And, you know, that's when we all need to step up for each other. But we've also got to remember not just to wait until there's a crisis, right?
Very true.
If we're there for each other all the time, we're prepared. Rather, you know, like with your epilepsy, you know, you're prepared for one. So when one hits you, you've got notes and things like this for what people to do. But it doesn't mean you're inviting it. It just means you're prepared for it and you know what to do. So if a community knows what to do, that means you don't leave anyone behind. You don't leave an animal behind. Everybody is out there helping one another.
Actually, that's one of the best things that we can all do for each other. Let's help each other.
Yes, I mean, that's what it's about. It's about us helping each other, for sure. Okay, let's look at another one of these books. Which one came after that?
I think it was, that's when the spiritual guiding from those above us came along.
Okay, so tell us about that one.
Before I moved to Canada, I used to attend a church in the UK, in Hemel Hempstead, which is the town that I lived in. And I used to attend a church working with them, as in working in the table, taking the money and buying things, but also chaired the services and also gave a little helping hand doing some healing as well. Because anyone could do healing if they try.
Yes, it's just stepping into a higher vibration, a higher frequency and sharing that energy.
Yes.
Right? You know, it's stepping into that higher energetic field and then passing that energy on to someone else.
Who's in
And
pain?
yeah, and you know, the difference that it can make. And you know, is it seen, you know, always immediately, rather like your operation?
Mm.
Time will tell, right?
Again, exactly. Those
Yeah.
three words. Time will tell.
Yes, yes, again back to time. But it's also got to be in belief,
Yes,
right? You have to have that faith that something will work and be open to it, because if you're not open to that energetic healing, then you're not going to be able to receive it because you haven't opened up your channels,
very true.
right?
That's
So you have to open up that channel in order to receive, and don't look at, well, is it happening yet? You know, because it doesn't work that
true.
way.
No.
The energy will go where it needs to go, all right, and regenerates you, gives you the energy to help yourself.
Yes.
That's all
Very
it does. Yeah. And, you know, whether you're doing it physically with somebody or whether you're doing it through the words that you write, you know, when things are written in that energy and they're read with that same energy signature, they're always healing, aren't they?
Because obviously all those that, including myself, that I could class my epilepsy book as a self-help book, and all those that write other self-help books, that what we're all doing, we're all getting someone to read that book to help them.
Yes. Yes, you're sharing your journey. Look, this is my challenge. This is what happened to me. This is what I went through. However, this is the skills, the techniques, and the knowledge I learned that can help you avoid the big potholes
Yes,
along the way, right? Because if you can help people avoid, you know, the hatchets in the head and just, you know, only receive the bumps, then they're going to get through it a lot faster. This is what all wise people in the village used to pass on, right? And they were listened to. So what you're doing is sharing knowledge that if people choose to listen to, you know, they walk forward not just in knowledge, but in wisdom and how to use that knowledge.
I cannot agree any more than that, Sara.
Okay, so you wrote that book and, you know, about kind of healing and everything else, which, how did you come about the healing? Was it something that just kind of came to you, or was it something you were exposed to?
I kind of suppose when I watched it in the churches take place, and I thought I'd watch and gave it a go myself, and noticed that the power could be felt as I.
Yeah.
Even there was a case when I spoke to someone on the phone who had a problem with their ankle. They were spiritual themselves, and obviously what I did was spoke to them from mind of the phone and just concentrating, rubbing my hand over the ankle, and they could feel the healing coming at their end, at the other end of the phone.
Yeah. Yes. Again, folks, energy is constantly traveling. Frequency and energy is a constant flow. It doesn't need to be restricted or contained or you know, applied literally by the hand. In fact, some people shouldn't apply hand to body because their energy is too strong.
Right.
And this is why, you know, you either have the Reiki healers or you have other healers that just can literally send out energy. We've got to stop looking at this thing as energy as something that we just plug in the wall. It is a higher frequency of quantum energy that is constantly out there, and that when you tap into it and direct it somewhere,
Yes.
it has amazing healing commodities to it.
Yes, that's very true.
And in a game, the person has to be receptive, you know, because, and, you know, it's, have you ever used EFT?
No.
Emotional freedom technique, absolutely brilliant, because it's hitting points on the body and that go directly to the emotional brain, and it's a way of redirecting yourself. So you actually address the problem, and then you go around and release the problem, and then you go around and you speak to what your desire is, and it's resetting things, which then resets your body, the energy in your body. So we have to understand that there are all these other options out there, right? Now, obviously, in the case of your epilepsy, no, you needed the technology.
Yes.
You needed that, and it's not a question of one or the other. It's how do we blend these together? So the operation gave you back yourself, but now you needed to step into the healing energy to deal with what your body had gone through because of the epilepsy.
Yeah, because what happened there, again, just going back to the fact with the epilepsy, we went through just so many medications.
Yes.
And went of running out of medications to try, which was when the MRI scan came along, and that's the last chance saloon to do anything about it.
Right. Yeah. Yes, you imagine how many people have gone before you that literally, died through it because, misunderstood, or, as you said, a short life at least because of the wear and tear
Yes.
on the body, or the accidents, having an epileptic fit in the bath, hitting their heads. I mean, all these things,
True.
right? So because you don't know when it's coming on. I'm an asthmatic, and I was on the phone one time, and I went into an asthma attack, and all the person could hear on the other time was this, the other line was me trying to breathe, and I couldn't let go of the handle to put it down. Everything about my body was constricting, and I was gasping for breath, right? And the more you try and gasp for breath, the more your body constricts.
Yes.
And, I imagine that epilepsy is that too, the constriction of your body, and they're limiting you to be able to do anything. You can't release any energy. You can't do anything. You're just tight into a ball.
Yeah, because you say with what you just explained with your asthma attack relating to an epileptic person having an attack, we both have the same thing in common, that once the attack starts, you're out of control.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the poor person on the other side, when I finally got through the attack, like, are you all right? Are you alive? And I couldn't put the phone down. I couldn't do anything. You're just rigid like this, just gasping for breath. And many a time for me, I'd pass out, until I discovered Ventolin, asthma pump I've been on now for 50 years, which, saved me. So it's medication, not technology for me, but I suppose it was technology that brought about the medication. So look at it that way. But, people don't realize actually what it does. There's also the psychological wear and tear, isn't there?
Yes, wear and tear side of it, that all comes into it.
Yeah. And, the fact that you've chosen, to pour your energy out into your books, into your poems, into hope, and into awareness, the timepiece is an awareness, let us look at time differently, right? Because until we start respecting time and the gift that it gives us, we're going to waste it.
Exactly. As in, if you don't make your life excitable or that kind of thing, as when you get older, time's whizzing by, you just got to make the most of it. Yeah.
So tell me about the Friends and Lovers book.
That is a book I just kind of wrote relating to a family, friends afar, as in that was, I think, relating to when you got friends afar, what difference it makes. Having wonderful grandparents, because I certainly did when my nan and granddad was younger, and I was a child then. I always liked going round to their home at the weekends. And the courage to talk, as in, and meeting new friends, as in when you, like I say, when I had the epilepsy and after the operation, I began going to epilepsy groups to meet new friends, pass my information onto them, but as also the epilepsy groups help you at the same time.
Yeah.
Epilepsy groups or epilepsy societies.
It's people who understand what you're going through. Right?
Yes.
It's not there to kind of go, woe is me, and bring out the violin. It's to share the challenges, and okay, I've been there. This is what I did to help me get out of it. Maybe give it a try, right? Or this is what, has helped me, with the operation, that I don't have them anymore. Maybe they weren't aware of it. It's also those times when you are down and you need that proverbial hug. I'm having a bad day, knowing that you can get those arms around you, so to speak, of support without judgment.
Yeah, because there's the book for it.
Right. And show us the others.
And that's spiritual guiding.
Right.
And those of others. And the Garden of Life, which I think did I show that earlier?
No, we haven't seen any of the books yet.
And there was a time when what we did was me and Chelsea did one ourselves called Always by Our Side, which is a full book of some of the spiritual poems I had in spiritual guiding, and Chelsea's also own telling of her spiritual trip that she took. And then there came a point when we thought, after we'd worked together for a year, we put 2 books together as a first edition of Anniversary.
All right. Wonderful. And of course, her show is going to be following yours. Yes. So you're both going to be out. We wanted to do a separate show because you were both coming from different angles. But it's also interesting how you met as well, because she's in Canada, where you've moved to now.
Yes.
And you were in the UK at the time?
I was in the UK, yes. I was living in a town called Hemel Hempstead, and I met her through a site called LinkedIn, and we began that way, and things over a period of time became closer and closer, and became boyfriend, girlfriend, and came to a point in 2015 when it was suggested of me coming over here for a trial period to see if we could live under the same roof.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout January 2016, I stayed here, and we passed the test, and so the rest is history, as in I went back to close my apartment down and then came back, and since February 2016 I've been here ever since.
Great. And obviously going well, co-writing together, and you support one another, and her writing is different, of course, but then you've also got that common denominator where you can write together.
Yeah.
But because you're both writers, there's also the respect of your space, but also the being able to share the creative process.
Yeah, we have our own small offices, so we work in our own different spaces.
Right.
To work.
Which is important, again, going back to that energy. You're in one particular energy zone, she's in another, and you don't want to get mixed unless you're doing a collaborative project. Then that's different. Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah. Because you get into your zone, right? So, and so do we have another book there that I think we might have missed? The Book of Lovers' Poems.
That was the only Book of Love. That one. Yeah, we.
No, the Book of Lovers' Poems.
Actually,
A Book of Lovers' Poems. Yes, it's Red Writing and Holding Hands.
I don't know. I haven't got that here. Sorry, Sara.
That's all right. It's okay. It's going to be on the posting where people can find it, also here on the YouTube. But tell us about that one.
That is full of poems that I thought about relating to other people's love lives, in meeting, getting together, going for a date, or beginning to meet each other, and those kind of subjects that leads to people getting together and becoming friends and more.
Mm-hmm.
This is the reason I called it the Lovers' Poem, and it was such a good book to write.
Right. Well, obviously written at a time period where you guys were coming together, so an easy flow. So
it was.
So when did the Epilepsy book come about? Is this something that you've only done recently?
That was written in 2016, and for a long period of time I've been writing bits of my past on paper, and in the long term, over a period of time, there came a point when I had a load of information written down that I could put together and make it into one book.
Right.
Into a manuscript.
And the fact that, you've written this some years later, that is that it's not, a year later and people say it's still too soon to talk about the success of it. You're 22 years later and no fits, right? And, that was one of the first kind of operations. So as I said, they've probably perfected it even more now.
Yes.
And, all the other facts, but as you said, the wear and tear on the body, and that became the next challenge, all the knocks and everything else the body had taken, even in the constriction. Because what's happening in that constriction, there is no oxygen and there is no energy flowing through your body at all. It shuts things down. So all of the organs are not getting You know,
No.
the oxygen or the fluidity, the blood isn't flowing. So and you do that several times and that starts breaking the body down. So it's left its scars with you, which of course, you know what they are, but you have found a direction to go in that
Yeah.
you can do without putting wear and tear in your body, and you allowed your creative flow to do.
Any job that involves rising, sitting down, if you've had a life like I have of crash bang wallops with the back or
Right.
lower, there's always that chance of finding something that just involves sitting down and work.
Yes, I hear you. Yes, yes. I'm sitting down doing my job. Yes. And, you know, again, a lot of people will look at you and you go, oh, you look perfectly healthy to me. Why don't you do this? And why don't you do that? We've got to stop saying to people, why, you know, oh, I run 10 kilometers a day. You can too. You look all right. And to understand, it doesn't matter what people look on the exterior. We don't walk around with little engraved neon signs on us saying, I have, right? Or I've had, or these are my challenges. We know what they are. We get on and doing with what we can do in our own parameters. And to everyone else, if that works for you, that's great. But instead of imposing it on someone else, how about find out what their challenges are first?
Because obviously what someone else can't see wrong is
right.
the inside of us,
yes,
which the damages.
Yes, exactly. And, you know, so many people walk around like that. I'm one of them. You know, I've had my own little challenges here. And, you know, oh, but, you know, you could do this and you can do that. And why don't you do that? Oh, it's just the mind over matter. Well, it's the mind over matter that pushes you. But
Yes.
then if you're not paying attention to the little voice, those little triggers, all right? You know, don't get overtired, don't do this, don't do that, or hello, I'm going to come up and whack you on if you don't pay attention, right? And that's the thing, you have to be in partnership with whatever your health challenge is, don't you? It's not going to go away, although you're so much better. As you said, well, the residual scarring there now gives you your limitations. And instead of looking at them as limitations, just look at it, okay, those are out of bounds for me. Can't do that. What can I do? Let's put the energy over there.
Exactly. There's obviously things when, as you say, there are things we can't do and things we can do. We just concentrate and focus on those we can.
Yes. Yes. And we cannot measure ourselves up against other people. I mean, you may have some people with epilepsy that had the operation earlier in life and haven't had so many knocks. You know, and they're going to go on and lead a really, you know, maybe physical productive life, but it all depends on the history before the operation.
Yes, exactly.
Right. So having this operation and obviously really perfected today, do you know if kids or anything, as soon as they're getting it, are they looking at trying to do that operation to stop it before it gets any worse?
They obviously approached their local hospital epilepsy centre to find out if it's possible by having tests. So some are and some ain't. So obviously, because after when people have the tests and they prove positive that you can go forward to it, it's there down, like it was with me, down to me if I really want to go for it.
Right. Yeah.
Because of the risk involved with the operation.
Right. Of course, they're dealing with the brain, around the brain. So it's a very delicate operation. And of course, with a child. But there again, if you've got a child that's having 60 epileptic fits a year, you've got to look at the dangers of that compared to the operation. And you're saying if it's on the right-hand side, they couldn't do anything with you then, but can they now?
I'm not sure. I think it still has to be the seizures have to trigger from the one side, the left-hand side.
Be interesting to find out with the right-hand siders what they do, because there must be some sort of help for them today.
Yes.
So with technology advancement, for sure. But I'm glad that you had the operation, you know, and it allowed you to open up to your creative side and tapped into your own energy, because, you know, you're showing that there is life, you know, after epilepsy.
Yes, there is.
And, you know, that, but also just because you've had the op and you don't have the fits anymore, don't ignore all the damages that's been done, you know, beforehand, because just like athletes, you know, that get concussion that builds up over a period of time, you know, if you have enough falls, it's going to do the same in your body. And at some point your body then becomes the problem. So you have to be aware of that and look after it.
That's very true indeed. You have to look after your body how best you can.
Yeah, exactly. So you also co-wrote another book with your wife, Telsey?
Yeah, Telsey. We did the book called Why. I think that would be a book that tells
Yes.
you
So this is what we're going to do, Telsey. Keep it up for a moment.
Oops.
Great, wonderful. And so that's the book we're going to talk over with Telsey, your wife, and why, and also the orb I'm going to be doing with her as well. And so we will cover that book, and that is a totally different type of book, isn't it?
Oh yes, it's a beginning of the fiction stories.
Right, exactly. And all fiction, comes from a certain amount of reality in our lives, doesn't it?
Yes, you obviously, I suppose all authors when they write books, fiction stories, somewhere in their books,
yes,
to be a part of their life in there.
Yeah, exactly. Even when you see sci-fi and you think it's always too far out of the world, look at the message. Look at the parallels, and you see, that it really, I think the reason why we love sci-fi so much is the fact that it always feels a little relative to us in some way, but it's part of that escapism as well, or the what would another world be like, which if I was younger and maybe 50 years on, I'd probably be up in the space thing, most certainly.
Yeah, they're certainly coming through in the future of us being able to travel to space.
Yes, and becoming more and more common about it. As long as we don't look to going to another planet and destroying that as we're destroying this one.
No, very true.
Right, we need to clean up our act here and do not repeat this elsewhere.
No.
And I think be more mindful of our own energy.
Yes, exactly. Being mindful of what energy we have and use it wisely.
Yes, very wisely. And we've got to understand too that our health is our responsibility, because when you're young, you're in the hands of your parents and the doctors. But as you get older, you do have to develop a relationship with your body or with your mind or whatever your challenges are. It's not ignoring them. Yes, you can do a mind over matter to a point, but you've also got to understand your parameters. Yes. You also got to understand that there's always an answer out there, but are you willing to seek it? Are you willing to try new things? Even if you don't understand it, just, give it a try and see what it does for you, because it's not a sit back and say, I've got, right? It's what are you going to do to help yourself either live with it or overcome it, or thrive because of it. And we have to understand that that's our health is our responsibility, and we need to take charge of it.
As in push the barrows that you can.
Yeah.
And go as far as you can in life.
Yes. Yeah.
Whatever it is that you want to seek.
Right. I mean, it hasn't stopped you. Your barriers. You know that you couldn't do that physical job anymore. Well, that doesn't mean you can't work anymore. It just means that you go and look for something else that has a more of a driving passion.
Yes, exactly. One that will not cause pain to the main bad areas that you have on your body.
Exactly. Yeah. So honor your body and look try something new. Well, I've always done this. Well, then it's time for a change, right? It's time to explore and see what else is out there. And this is an end of a chapter for you. So, whatever you have in your life of your health challenges, whatever that end of chapter is, it's just a new platform for you to explore.
Yeah, it's just so the end of a chapter and the start of another.
Right. So what's next for you in the books?
I'm doing a fiction book myself at the moment, and we'll write more poetry books as time goes on.
Right. Excellent. Great. Well, it's been a delight having you here. Thank you for sharing with us. Now, how do people find you, and how do they purchase the books?
They can actually, the books I've shown, they can find them on my site of PJ Churchill at simplesight.com.
That's pjchurchill.simplesight.com.
Yeah.
Right, the dot in between.
that's how people can find my books. And underneath each book are links to where they can buy their book to their nearest place that they buy them from.
Right, excellent, wonderful. And definitely if you know anybody with epilepsy, it's a great book to give them, because they may know these things, but then maybe there's something in there they didn't know. Or and if you have a family member or somebody who has it, it's good to read it so you understand what they're going through, and how you can help them. And because so many times people don't help because they don't know how. So if you know what the person's going through and what they need at that time, then you're more able to step up and help them.
Yes.
So just having that book to actually understand it. If you're in the health business, it's good for you to have more knowledge on the epilepsy from someone who's had it.
And even, for example, anyone who runs a clinic that has books in their place, or even that they sell, it's a good thing for them clinics to buy a couple of books and put them on their shelves for their patients to buy. Right.
And the best knowledge is always from somebody who's lived it.
Yes.
We can have all the clinical books, which is great because that's the nuts and bolts, but when you hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak, it's so much more relatable and understandable. So most certainly that's where the book can be found and get it out there. The other thing is the poetry books. Christmas is coming up, and they'll make great gifts. I mean, we all need something that makes us reflect, that makes us look forward positively, something that taps into our energy, that gets our energy flow going. And so, having a poetry book that just brings us back into our center and sees life in a different way is always a wonderful gift to give.
Very much indeed, as in like those that probably might go to spiritual churches and always like to sit there and memorize about the people of their past. That my book that I have, a spiritual guiding from those above us, that's a book that would help them into also to sit at home and by the fire and reading about memories and people of their past.
Yes. Just because people their vehicle has gone doesn't mean the spirit has.
No.
And when you remember them, that's keeping that spirit alive, because that spirit's within you.
Yes.
Right. So speaking about those that have gone before is it may be sad for you, but make it glad for you by remembering the gift that they left you with, which is that spirit.
Very much indeed, Sara.
Yeah. Wonderful. So again, it's pjchurchill.simplesite.com.
Yes.
And everything could be found there. The books, the information, and how to buy the books in whatever country you're in. And as I said, a great time to start doing some Christmas shopping. And, hand on the gift of knowledge or of hope, of love, of just belief. So I think it's wonderful to do. So thank you so much for being with us here today, PJ.
Your pleasure. You're welcome.
And I'm so glad that you had that operation, and that you've been able to explore life on a much different level. And the fact that it's 22 years with no epileptic fit, even despite the fact that you've got the other issues, but I mean, we wouldn't have these books and for you to share with us if you hadn't got that. So, and for everyone else who's kind of thinking of the operation or know somebody, they can reach out to you as well.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, wonderful. So thank you so much. And to everyone else, remember, when we have a better understanding of what people are going through, instead of looking at somebody going, well, what the hell? If we actually understand even the surface a little bit, or understand the after journey, we know how to treat people, or to ask the right questions, or offer the right help. And it's just respect. It's respect of understanding a little bit of what they're going through, because we're all going through stuff, and most of the time we're too scared to talk about it, or we are scared to be misunderstood. And when people have a better knowledge, it's more open to dialogue, which then diffuses the mystery or the uncomfortableness, and then people start looking at you for who you are, not what your disability is. Okay, folks? So until next time, bye for now. For more wonderful shows like this, please go to selfdiscoveryradio.com, podcasts, and see our lineup. And if you wish to support us, we have a funded button. Please stay tuned for our next show.